We have some major developments to get to on the Brandon Aiyuk trade and contract front. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Hope all of you out there are having a fantastic Wednesday as this Aiyuk trade buzz going into the NFL draft really starting to catch fire. Speaking of the NFL draft, make sure you join us tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, as we here on the 49ers Report by Chat Sports. We'll be live every single day, every single round, every single selection, and when the Niners make a move, Aiyuk trade potentially, when they make a draft selection, we're going to talk about it all here on the show. Closing in on 132,000 subscribers, so make sure you lock us in. Subscribe to the channel, largest Niners channel that covers this team every day right here on YouTube. Let's first give word to our sponsor, Roan, for making today's 49ers Report possible. I'm wearing their commuter polo right now, and if you want to get swagged up, swagged out, look good, feel good, Roan is your only answer. Spice up your wardrobe with high-quality men's clothing that is breathable, has stretchable fabric. It's so comfortable. I'm done wearing those crappy shirts with crappy material. These clothing items will last a long time. And they serve so many different purposes, from hosting shows here at Chat Sports. I can wear this polo, and I have on the golf course, date night, getting some drinks with some homies, anti-odor technology, and they have everything that you really want. Dress shirts, polos, shorts, pants. The best part about all of this is we have a great deal for the faithful. 20% off your order, roan.com/chatsports. We're going to put that link down in the show notes and in the description of this video. We really appreciate Roan for making today's show possible. There's a lot I want to get to on the Brandon Aiyuk front. We gave you the latest from Mike Silver in the San Francisco Chronicle piece last night. I did that video from the at-home setup. And things continue to change because context is really important, but also more news developments across the entire National Football League. And this morning, the Lions extended wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown on a massive contract extension, which really impacts the Brandon Aiyuk market here. Ian Rappaport breaking the news not long ago that according to sources, the Lions have a deal for one of the top young talents at the wide receiver spot, agreeing on an extension for wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is going to get a 4-year deal, $120 million, $77 million in guaranteed cash, and the deal obviously getting done by his agency. This last line, though, is very important to note. Amon-Ra St. Brown is now tied with Tyreek Hill as far as average annual value goes for being the highest paid wide receiver in the National Football League. $30 million per season. Now, how does this impact Brandon Aiyuk specifically? You're probably watching right now saying, Chase, this is with the Detroit Lions. What are you talking about? It all has to do with the wide receiver market being flipped on its head yet again, being reset, and this drives the price tag up for Aiyuk, in my opinion, because I think that Brandon Aiyuk is a better wide receiver than Amon-Ra St. Brown. A little bit taller, both good route runners, both have a lot of footwork, both exemplify what their teams are about, toughness, physicality, willing blockers. But I think because Aiyuk has the size advantage, a little bit more of the deep threat, more of that boundary X perimeter wide receiver, I think he's better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. And this is the problem here that the 49ers sometimes run into. By waiting to get these contract extensions done with their homegrown players, July, August, in the case of Nick Bosa last year, in September, because then other teams sign these deals a little bit earlier with their homegrown players, and they reset the market, and in turn, they drive up the price point. Devontae Smith, $25 million per year from the Philadelphia Eagles last week. I think Aiyuk, a better player than Devontae Smith. And I think that Aiyuk is the better wide receiver as compared to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, I tweeted this out on X, and a couple of the casuals are all up in my mentions saying, there's no way that Brandon Aiyuk is better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. Look at his production. You can look at his production all you want, but look at the targets. Again, context is always important here, where Amon-Ra St. Brown, first 3 years in the league, and yes, he's 24, Aiyuk 26, so he's a younger player, has so many more targets than Aiyuk year by year. 119, 146, 164. He's not playing on an offense with the bevy of weapons that the Niners have, or on a run-first offense like the Niners are. And of course, when you have more targets, you're going to have more catches, and you're going to have more yards. But with what Aiyuk has been able to do in a more limited sample size, I think that adds to the argument that he's the better player. And when you turn on the tape, this is nothing to take away from Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's a really good player. He's getting paid. He's certainly earned that. He remembers all of the wide receivers who were drafted in front of him because he was like a third or fourth round pick. That's great. But Aiyuk is a player who's continued to ascend, who's a complete route runner, complete wide receiver, great deep threat for Brock Purdy. He's a goal line to goal line wide receiver who's also utilized in the red zone. And the production that he had, 75 catches, number 2 in the league in yards per catch, 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns, came with all of these other weapons, with Christian McCaffrey, more than 2,000 all-purpose yards. George Kittle, first 1,000-yard season since 2019. Deebo Samuel, more than 1,000 all-purpose yards as well, and he was a second-team All-Pro. And you look at the targets by year, St. Brown, we went over those. 119, a $146, 164. Aiyuk's targets by season have never even come close outside of his year 3 compared to Amon-Ra St. Brown's year 1. Targets by year for BA, 96, 84, 114, 105. If Aiyuk had the targets of Amon-Ra St. Brown, he would absolutely cook. He is the better wide receiver, and this is why Aiyuk, by the way, might want to go elsewhere so that he can get wide receiver 1 money like Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 1 targets like Amon-Ra St. Brown, which then leads to higher production on that average annual value, the total guaranteed money, and the contract as a whole. So this is not good news if the 49ers were hoping to keep Aiyuk's deal in the range of $25 to $27 million, because yesterday's price is now not today's price, and Aiyuk and his camp, they can go to the negotiating table and say, well, hold on, we're better than Devontae Smith at $25 million per. We're better than Calvin Ridley at $23 million per. We're better than Amon-Ra St. Brown at $30 million per year. And now what does this mean for Justin Jefferson? What does this mean for CeeDee Lamb? For Jamar Chase, he had his 5th-year option exercised today. Price tag on the uptick for Brandon Aiyuk now. To the second part of this conversation, are 2 teams emerging as Aiyuk destinations? I held up the 2 here because I was a baseball outfielder. You don't go with the piece, you go with the 2. It's a little bit easier to see. Those who know, real one. Shout out to you. But Jacksonville Jaguars, in all seriousness, Indianapolis Colts, the 2 teams going into night 1 of the NFL draft on Thursday that are being mentioned by some people in the know who have some sources, who do some digging as teams who could trade for Aiyuk. And when I think about this, it makes a lot of sense, and I release my thoughts on X, on Instagram. Give me a follow over there at Chase_Senior. But let's tie everything together here. So Daniel Jeremiah tweeting this out on Wednesday morning. I'm looking at possible teams for an Aiyuk trade, and I keep coming back to the same 2. Colts, Jaguars. Now, you think back to the Mike Silver report in the San Francisco Chronicle on Tuesday. He said that the asking price right now for Aiyuk is a first-round pick. Another NFL executive believes that the Niners might settle for a second-round pick. So you look at the Colts first-round pick, you look at the Jags first-round pick, but also the compensation that they have in the draft in the second round. The Colts on the clock, 15th overall. The Jags on the clock in the first round, 17th overall. Ideally, in a perfect world, if the Niners can't pay Aiyuk, maybe $30 million per year now, 15th overall, 17th overall could be the apple of their eye. That could appease them if they need to or don't want to pay Brandon Aiyuk, right? Because he was the 25th pick in 2020. He's 26 years old, a second-team All-Pro. I've said I think the starting point for an Aiyuk trade is a first-round pick for the reasons that I just mentioned. Now, if the Niners can't get a first-rounder, you start to look at some of that premium second round capital. Can you still get a very good player at 46? You can. High caliber starter. Can you get a really quality player at 48? Only 2 picks later. You can. So the Niners' asking point right now is a first round selection. If they have to come down to that, to a second rounder, 46, 48 overall, makes this conversation very, very interesting. Now, the Jags have been a team that's been mentioned for quite a long time. There was the report, that the Jags were looking into Aiyuk. Aiyuk and his camp were interested in the Jags. You think about what's transpired this offseason for Jacksonville. There's pressure to win for that regime. Trent Baalke, former Niners general manager, Doug Peterson, they didn't make the playoffs last year. They collapsed. Trevor Lawrence has been up and down. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride since he was drafted number 1 overall out of Clemson. They feel the pressure to win very, very soon. And they lose Calvin Ridley. They have Christian Kirk. They have ETN. They have a couple of other good weapons. They signed Gabe Davis. But Brandon Aiyuk on the Jags would immediately become that number 1. Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis, they slide into that number 2, number 3 role. It's a pretty damn good offense right there. And then for the Indianapolis Colts, and by the way, these two teams in the AFC, you don't have to worry about them often unless you play against them once in the regular season. The Colts signed Michael Pittman Jr. to that contract extension, and they already have Jonathan Taylor at running back, and they're trying to bulk up that offense with the quarterback on his rookie deal. They paid Pittman. They can pay Brandon Aiyuk with a lot of cap space. And you give that young quarterback on a rookie contract, the bevy of weapons around him, with an offensive-minded head coach in Shane Steichen with Indianapolis. Offensive-minded head coach with the Jags in Doug Peterson. That's why these destinations do make a little bit of sense. With the need, the current construction of the roster, but the draft capital that they have at their disposal locked up in the chamber. Will Aiyuk get dealt on draft night? Our poll question for today's show. I want to hear from you because I know a lot of people are fired up. Y for yes, N for no. Let me know. And as always, thanks for watching the program.